Can the Giants beat the Lions if he doesn't play?
They can beat the Lions if he does not play, but he's going to play. And like I talked about last week, as far as practice, Nick is starting to understand slightly. He still doesn't believe that I'm correct in the matter. Practice is very, very important. And him being out there on a Thursday, now this is a different Thursday than it would be, because in the NFL schedule, when you play on Monday, the coaches move the schedule back. So your typically off day would be a Tuesday. They move it to Wednesday. So your hardest days, when you play a Monday night game, they're on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now, the Wednesday practice is not that important. The Thursday practice is paramount because they're starting to put the game plan in. And this is the first time the Giants could look at him, see him running, and be like, you know something? We could put a scheme in because we think he's going to be there. He couldn't play in the Dallas game. He tried to. He didn't get medical clearance, but if you left it up to him, if it had been a playoff game, he would have played in it. So he's right. It is a 6 to 8 week injury. I didn't want to say it before, but he let the cat out the bag. He had a high ankle sprain. I've been knowing that the whole time. I just didn't want to say it. The Giants didn't want people to know, and that's what prolonged the ankle injury compared to some other ankle injuries. But they have to have him on the field. This offense is not an explosive offense, even though they have a few nice little pieces. That offensive line, their inability for them to block Eli's inability to be consistent, and those things are magnified if Odell is not there.
But he's playing Monday.
Yes, he's absolutely playing on Monday.
You told us a week ago or a week and a half ago on the first day of the show, Thursday's the practice to look for week one. Didn't practice in week one. He was a limited participant yesterday. You've talked to him. You expect him to play on Monday. And it is a damn good thing he's going to play on Monday, because I remember Mark Schlereth, I think, told me, listen, players, we don't look ahead to the schedule. Our season's always 1 week long, and it's just the guy in front of you. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. But the coaches, GMs, guys that are looking maybe from a more 10,000-foot view, they do look at the schedule. And you know what the Giants have after this home game respite against the Lions? They're in Philly. They're in Tampa. They started the season in Dallas. We knew going into the season the Giants were going to be betting underdogs in 3 of their first 4 games. Doesn't mean you can't win them, but Vegas is going to say you are unlikely to win 3 of your first 4. The one game where they would be favorites, home against Detroit. You can't have Odell not be in this game, because if he were to not play in this game, you have no offense in this game. And while I think Detroit's a flawed team, Detroit can score some points.
Yes.
Even on the New York Giants, they can score some points. You need Odell to just be able to give your offense enough of a heartbeat to where you can score enough points to win this game. And we've talked about how if you fall to 0-2, 88% of the time you don't make the playoffs. The Giants, if they were to not win Monday night, forget 0-2. They'd be looking at potentially 0-3, 1-3, 0-4, and then your season is gone. So it's critical he plays.
But, Nick, you said they need Odell to at least give this offense a heartbeat. They need a lot more than just a heartbeat from Odell to beat this Lions team. Do you worry at all that you know he's not 100%? He knows he's not 100%. So we shouldn't expect him to have an Odell Beckham last year type of game in this game. Do you worry that you're rushing him back a little too soon because you're going to probably give him more than he can or should handle, and you know he's going to want it? Is that a concern at all in rushing him back?
It's not a concern because I see the way he's moving. In his lateral movement, which is more important for a wide receiver, especially getting off the bump and run, which you have to play bump and run with a safety help over the top against Odell because he's such a great route runner and he has such a high football IQ that he will pick you apart if you just try to play zone and play off of him. I remember when I had this injury. I tried to play week number 1 with it. I wasn't very, very effective. But after that, I remember we came to New York and played the Giants. And I had 100 yards in the first half.
But did you
in the 3rd week of the ankle injury? So he's done everything. He's got a great staff around him, not only the Giants staff, but the staff that he personally has hired to be able to train him, to be able to take care of him. He's spent 24 hours around the clock trying to get this ankle. I expect big things out of Odell.
And Jenna, so a few things. One, that it is a 6 to 8 week injury, but that is the time frame until you're as close to full strength as you will get. It is not an injury where you are out 6 to 8 weeks. With Thomas Rawls, suffered a high ankle sprain this preseason around the same time as Odell. He is expected to play this week. You mentioned if it were a playoff game. We saw a wide receiver. We want to go position for position. Jeremy Maclin suffer a high ankle sprain in a wild card game for the Chiefs and play the following week. So that's not smart, but in the playoffs, you're not worried about the long-term rest of your season.
Right.
So it is something that, not like a broken leg. You can't fight through it. You can fight through this. What would have been silly or potentially long-term damaging would have been if he would have played week 1. It's why Cris was on the phone with him saying, calm down. It's a long season. You don't need to play week 1. But the other thing you said, Jenna, was in order to beat the Lions. I do not believe the Lions are some great team. I think last year they got by on smoke and mirrors, comebacks against bad teams. Week 1, people are impressed with what they did against Arizona. We might find out Arizona, especially offensively, is one of the most limited teams in football. I think you're going to see see the Lions, as you did many times last season. When they're up against a really good defense, Matt Stafford becomes a much more limited quarterback. So I don't think the Lions are going to go out there and score 35 points on the Giants. The problem is, if you don't have Odell, you might not score 10 points.
I mean, they don't have to score points. I mean, how long has it been since the Giants have scored 24 points with their offense?
It's been 7 straight games they have not scored at least 20 points. Forget 24. They haven't scored at least 20 against a playoff team since week 1 of last season. Their method has been simple. Suffocating defense, huge plays from Odell Beckham. They had the suffocating defense against Dallas.
Yes.
What they didn't have was the huge plays from Odell Beckham.
I just want to go back to something you said earlier that I practically tackled you to interrupt you for, in which case you kept steamrolling, which was good. It was very TV-ish of you. You said you came back after you hurt yourself. Your first game, you were not effective, and then the second, third, and fourth. Do you regret playing in that first game? If you could do it over again, would you have waited that first game and come back strong the second game and not have had an ineffective game?
Well, I regret it a little bit because eventually it became more of a nagging injury, and I did have to have it cleaned out a couple years later on, and that's what ends up happening because it's a weird injury. So you might get a bone spur if you play with the injury in the front. I've made that point to Odell, and he understands that. But at that time, I think I had a streak of 180-something games in a row.
There we go.
So I had to run on out there to keep that thing going.
Okay,
but
so
I really thought that I could play, and I was totally against getting any type of injection. As a wide receiver, it's hard to play with an injection to your ankle. And Odell was totally against, not that the Giants recommended it, but he was not trying to take anything, any shot or any medication to take away the pain, but he could really injure himself in week
Just getting
number 1.
back to my point, do you want him in the lineup if he is going to maybe be ineffective, maybe have, what did you have, a bone spur, stress fracture, whatever it is? I mean, these are things that could happen if you don't come back.
Listen,
that 100 yards against the Giants, though, the bone spur, I'll get over that.
And here's the thing.
But will he get over that?
No, but here's the thing, Jenna, that we know he might be ineffective, he might not be. We know the Giants will be ineffective without him. And as far as long-term, a year later having to have an ankle procedure, I mean, it's pro football. None of these guys leave the league okay.
Yeah, you saw my ankles on the basketball court. They're all right.
I mean, I suppose. But like Cris, like I've played basketball with Cris. I've been in locker rooms with Cris. Looks like a guy that got beat up because he got beat up for a living. All these guys get beat up for a living. Right. It's part of the deal.
Nick, you don't want to know what Cris said about your basketball skills this morning right before you got in. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.